So my question for you to start
good memory
was, will Arsenal Football Club win the Premier League this season?
Oh, I love how you open on a serious topic. So I think they have more chance than ever, right? It's just I think Liverpool just has a phenomenal squad, but just has challenges catching their stride. So I'm really enjoying Arsenal. I think they're playing very dynamic. I think a couple of players like Eze they brought in really complement the team really nicely. I'm a big fan of Declan Rice. I think he's really connecting the midfield well. They're moving the ball well. I think they have a real shot. I mean, it just the Premier League is so tough and the year is so long, right? So it just takes a couple of games of kind of getting into a rut. So I keeping my fingers crossed that they keep on strong. So
yeah, I've been enjoying it this year.
Yeah,
and that's a good thing about we've got quite a young office, and there's Liverpool, Man United, Man City, and they're all in the same office, and it is
This is not live, right?
It is live, yeah.
It is live. Okay. Then I'll tell you later. We have a bit of a news on that front, so I just cannot reveal it yet.
Okay. Yeah, let's get to it.
Okay.
Sure. Obviously, Boris, I've met you before. I met you over in Vegas, which was just incredible. Thanks for having me over there. And we had a dinner of a lifetime at 4 a.m.
Well, what are you talking about? It was such a joy to have you. It was one of the highlights of the whole event for me as well. So we had an amazing time. So
excellent. Thank you very much. So how long are you over for in the UK?
I'm here for a week. So it's really a pleasure to be here at the Corec user group, and we should be here more often. That was my big realization this week. It's just a really good crowd this week, and trying to make the most of the week. So the several meetings throughout the week, and then what I love about UK is very close to my original home, which is Croatia. So I have family flying up on Friday, so I'm gonna get to spend a weekend with the family. So I'm quite excited about that. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So for you, how did you get into the industry? Because obviously you're in such a prominent role now with Trimble, the largest manufacturer. Geospatial products, one of these. So
I almost want to say a cliche, like everybody or most of the people here by accident, right? Like I know you're in the industry through your mom, right?
So
For me, I grew up with a brother who's 8 years older than me, and in Croatia, the university education is free unless you fail the same year of college twice, and then the third year you have to pay for it. So my brother, who's a brilliant engineer, is just not a book type of a student, right?
Yes. So
his third year, my mom said that you have to now pay for your college, and he got a job in a survey civil engineering firm back in Croatia. And I was just starting high school, and to make some extra money, he would work the weekends, and the typical story, right? I was carrying the rod around and then standing behind the instruments, and that's where it just clicked. Just the trigonometry, the making maps, and I decided to pursue the land surveying school. And funny story, later, about 15 years later, my brother became the CEO of the company. So it just he's a role model for me in terms of the persistence and not giving up, because he could have easily kind of been done with the college and quit right there, but he persevered, and later on he ended up leading the company we both used to work for as students. Wow. So it was just a fun story.
Amazing. What back then, what instrument were you stood behind?
Actually, it was Leica. I was a big Leica fan. So TC 1200, I believe, was the instrument. In college, my first GPS was Topcon. So I didn't use my first Trimble instrument until I was a researcher at Ohio State, and we needed more of a mapping grade product to verify some of our navigation trajectories, and ended up buying my first Geo 6000. At that point, it was my first Trimble instrument when I was 26 years old.
Wow.
So it's funny, right? But it just appreciate appreciate what our competitors do, and nice to have a competition in the likes of Hexagon and Topcon, and they make us better. And I think it's a small enough industry, right? That you need people that keep you on your toes. So
you can't become complacent when you have other companies striving to be the best.
Absolutely not, right? And we all know each other quite well, and grab drinks from time to time, and we don't talk shop, but we talk about tennis and football.
Exactly.
And skiing.
Yeah. So when did you leave Croatia then? So obviously you started your surveying career in Croatia, and then where did it go from there?
Yeah, so I got lucky during my college days. I worked as part-time student as a surveyor, like starting in the field, and then towards the end of my college, I was more doing office related. At that time, it was a software called Trimble Geomatics Office. That I was quite fond of doing baseline processing and some of the network adjustments. Then I really, as I got into it, I really appreciated the more of the data crunching and the programming side of surveying, and decided to pursue a PhD at Ohio State University in the U.S. And the thought was, I'm gonna go to the U.S. for 5 years, finish my PhD, and go back to Zagreb and teach at the university. And somewhere around the third year at the university in Ohio State, I just realized there's people who really live to be academic teachers and researchers. And I got really lucky that I worked on a project for NASA. So my lab at Ohio State got really famous for Mars rover navigation, and we were working on this astronaut navigation system. So I really realized that I'm much more enjoying the combination of hardware, software, and the more dynamic nature of executing on projects, compared to some of my colleagues at that time who were really phenomenal at research and at the algorithm level, which made me think, right, maybe I'm not cut out to be a college professor.
Yeah.
So that was a big decision to make. I felt like I was kind of giving up and not following through, and that just goes against my nature. But in the retrospective decision to leave and not stay and teach in the academia, and to leave for Trimble was one of the better decisions in my life. But at that time, and still today, I wake up like, maybe I should have finished my PhD and stayed and taught at the university. But that's kind of what brought me in the U.S. So I never flew on a plane before. So at the age of 24, I never heard of Columbus, Ohio in my life.
Yeah.
So it was a big leap, and one of those character building moments, I would say. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So have you just stayed in the US from there?
Yeah. So the Trimble at that time had this at the point where I was trying to decide whether I want to finish. I was like 2 years left at Ohio State to finish my PhD. I passed my doctoral exams and everything. And Trimble came and visited the university at one of the occasions, and they spoke about this rotational development program, and was quite intriguing because for somebody who has spent time working in the field, I was quite fond of the programming part of the industry. They came up with this rotational program where you worked for 2 years in 4 different divisions of Trimble doing 4 different jobs. I was like, for somebody who was super confused at that time what they want to do in life, I thought, what an amazing opportunity to get a bit of a flavor of everything and decide what's the best fit for me. So that's how I joined Trimble. I started Trimble in this rotational development program where I worked for 6 months as a surveying tester. I worked for 6 months in GIS support, 6 months in sales, and then 6 months in building construction product management. And after those 2 years, I realized that really the product management track was one that I was most intrigued with, because you get to act as a mini CEO. You get to try different aspects of working with engineering team to build the product, working with customers to understand what the needs are. And at that time, we were still in the middle of transitioning from Trimble Geomatics Office to Trimble Business Center.
Yeah.
So I became a product manager for Trimble Business Center before it was still cool, right? Or it became cool. So that was a fantastic start into my Trimble career, because at that time we did put software at the center of everything we do, right? So as a product manager of TBC, I got to interact with all the hardware groups, with all the sales teams, with a lot of customers around the world, which really set me up on a phenomenal path in Trimble. So I kind of, a lot of times, right, like we owe our good fortunes to the luck and just being at the right place at the right time, right? So I think everybody's super brilliant and smart in this room, and sometimes just takes being at the right place at the right time. So I consider myself luckier than smarter to be at the right place at the right time.
Do you look back at that product management side now and then think what it would have been like if you were that age now, and look at the development of how the industry looks now? I look at, even when I started, and it's say 13 years ago, and the surveyors, they come now and they've got the R12 and they walk into the trees, and I'm like, do you realize how lucky you are in that job role now compared to what I was like when I first started?
Oh, it's night and day, right? I mean, we are sometimes too close to it to just do what you just said, right? And take a step back and have an appreciation, right? Because it seems like a lot of incremental moves, but we always speak about how industry is evolving so rapidly, and it's really true, right? I would say if you reflect on the last 15, 20 years, this is a different type of an industry than it was. Like I said this morning, it's really less about collecting the dot and more about connecting the dots. And it shows through. So I think it's always good to have a premise, right? So my premise at that time, when I was a TBC product manager, it was really clear that the software is where the action is. And that time we even had like a massive investment in the cloud. And I would say we made probably 3 or 4 missteps in the cloud until we got it right with the Trimble Connect. You do have to kind of have things play out in their own dynamics, right? You can have a vision, you can have a kind of hey, I can see where
the real world,
where stuff is going, but the real world needs to be ready for it, right? And technology is one important, but actually lesser element in the bigger equations, right? That you have to have both the process and the people and we are also sometimes at the mercy, not sometimes, but at the mercy of the consumer electronics and evolution in chips and communication technologies and sensor fusion, and it's just amazing. I think the opportunities going forward are quite endless, right? So it's funny, like people ask, like you were just in a panel, you were asked, like, what's the future of surveying? Like, there's so many ways we can go from here, right? And it's hard to say. It's hard, especially today, it's hard to have a crystal ball. I would say maybe 13, 14, 15 years ago when I was a TBC product manager, it was actually a little bit more straightforward of what were some of the immediate next steps. I would say right now it's getting a little bit more difficult to predict, like, where are we going to be in 10, 15 years from now? I think we're going to be at a wildly different place as an industry.
I made a couple notes on your keynote, which I thought was brilliant, by the way.
Appreciate it.
You mentioned the shortening of the evolution of products. So obviously the TSC2, you said, I think it came out in 2010 and then 2018 was TSC3, I think you said.
That's correct, yeah.
So you had the 8-year buffer, and then it came shorter and shorter. How do you see this challenging environment that you're going into now with everything evolving so quickly in products? So that would be, outdated software, outdated equipment. Also, to build on that, if you don't mind holding that thought on that one, but building on that would be sustainability as well. Are we going into a mobile phone era on the fact of, I change my mobile phone every 2 years. Will my total station be doing that soon? Because we are evolving that quickly.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and something we speak in Trimble quite a lot about, right? Like when we came up with the R10, like we were like, oh my God, how do you make GNSS better than this, right? Fantastic form factor and everything, and then like you can add tilt, and now look, how can you make it better than this, right? I think we have plenty of ideas in the hamper. What is more challenging than I would say than 15, 20 years ago is that you cannot just rely on one track, right? Like you cannot just say like, okay, I'm gonna perfect and I'm gonna go from, let's say, an R8S to an R10, right? Like I'm gonna focus on form factor and number of channels, right? Now you have to be able to place multiple bets simultaneously, because to your point, the sensors and the chips evolve so fast, right? Like for years now, we have been dreaming about LiDAR getting to a solid state form where it would be small and cheap and not power hungry, so you can actually carry it around easily and have it on the top of your rod. And then do you do that? Do you wait for a perfect sensor, right? Or you go with a mechanical type of spinning LiDAR on top of your rod, like some of the industry peers are doing, right? So these are some of the really difficult equations as a product company that we need to deal with. And I think that the lesson there is that you cannot just bank for one type of technology or one combination of sensors. You really have to kind of focus on a multiple track, right? Like Apple does these 4-year major platform releases, right? So you know exactly when a new platform is going to come versus when it's going to be iteration on a camera only, right?
Yes,
So as a company, we or as an industry, or all the manufacturers are now in that tough balance, right? Because you put all of your eggs in the basket and then just the cheese moves on you like, oh shit, like I have to now readjust my roadmaps and go to the next stage. So I would say from that perspective, you have to hedge your bets in a much better way. That's causing some of these kind of the platform versus iterative elements on the platform, and hence why missteps on the platform can be so costly, right? Because you're so much tied into it. But yeah, I mean, when you look at that cycle is just has shrunk dramatically for us, which presents a lot of challenges. And this is where companies like Trimble, that has been always in pursuit of perfection, right? There might be times where you have to say, okay, this may be good enough, because if I don't release it now, I'm missing the window, right? And it's
and you're going to be better anyway.
Exactly, you're benefiting from some of those learning cycles, right?
Yeah.
So I read recently, one of the thought leaders on the topic said, if you released a perfect product, you know you messed up. It was like, because you either waited too long, right, or you got something wrong that you don't know how to innovate from there, right? So there's always more things you can do. I mean, we have a ton of ideas. I think where GNSS, even when you think of it just pure GNSS on its own, there's a ton more room to grow. But then when you start putting it in combination with sensors, you see a lot of magic happening. And I'd say like at this point, we're just limited by our innovation. I think that the technology landscape is going to continue evolving.
I think it isn't actually the first time I've heard you speak about it or Trimble speak about it, but it's Scandinavian countries and how they push the boundaries continuously. What do you think the UK could learn from them? You mentioned earlier that we are at the forefront-ish, but Scandinavians seem to be really pushing the boundaries on being in that connected workflow and equipment and going for it.
Now, UK is such a fascinating market for me, right? We talked about how there's not a chartered surveyor role, right? On the other hand, you're quite keen to adopt technology quickly and try things out. I think there's a brilliant element around the British surveyor there, that the productivity trumps everything, right? Like if it can prove to actually provide benefit and make projects come on time, on schedule, on cost, I think people are willing to try it, right? So I think what Scandinavia had going for them is they had also the government legislation in their favor, right? Because you may see the future, like you may see the strategy or opportunity, but also you're a part of the ecosystem, right? Like if the owners of the assets, right, or major roads, rail, tunnels, project, right, if the contractors, right, are not quite there or ready to embrace the technology, it's not going to happen, right? So I think the Scandinavians had the luxury of just the perfect alignment, which I think UK is pushing on those boundaries, right? So I would put UK quite high up there, right next to the Scandinavia when it comes to pragmatism and trying things out and make sure that they actually are proven to be worthy of investment. So I'm very optimistic about the general industry in the UK. I think there is an element there of kind of pinning and providing that more legislative element to the surveyor profession, or more of a recognition it deserves than maybe it has today.
I think that's one thing in the UK. We need to find what we are and push that and be like, okay, this is the education we need. This is what we need to learn on. And I think that doesn't help with how fast it's evolving, the industry. And I did speak about, one of my friends I took on board, and he went and studied in university for just 3D gaming art. And he hasn't gone into being, a geography background or a geospatial background, but the role fits perfectly for him now. So should we just be recruiting for certain roles instead of just being this broad, 50 things I can do? Swiss Army knife you're trying to make, aren't you? Constantly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would say that the traditional surveyor has and is going to continue being the Swiss Army knife, right?
Yeah.
I think even when we interview people in Trimble these days, one of the interview questions I ask is, do you like to play games, right? Because if they do, and a lot of young people do, is tells me they're really going to be comfortable with 3D technology and kind of moving through space. And just when I look my kids and how they're navigating to that experience, it's so impressive and so valuable, such a valuable skill. Just one example, right? Like you mentioned, the video vloggers and people that are, I mean, when you look at some of the social media, what does that tell you? That people are good communicators. They know how to get a message across, right? And not a traditional skill that a surveyor has, right? In terms of how to actually demonstrate my value to my clients. So that person could be absolutely valuable to you. They might not know how to pull off a traverse, but they might actually be able to bring new business to your company, right? So I think to your point, there is a lot to think about surveying or geospatial as a broad and as a narrow term, right? I think from that broad term, there's what we are seeing, and this is the dichotomy of the industry at the moment, right? There's unfortunately more surveyors retiring than the surveyors graduating, and yet even I can say that from a Trimble perspective, our sales keep going up and to the right, and how is that even possible? And then you realize it's actually all these new people that are coming to the industries. I mean, if you remember, right, when Google Maps came out, we were all like, "Oh my God, we're going to be out of business," right?
Yeah.
And then actually, our business grew because more people grew the appreciation for what accuracies and everything else you can add on top of that. Same thing when the UAV came out. I have to say, even in Trimble, we were like scratching our head, like, "Oh my goodness, are we going to sell a continuous topo GNSS ever again?" And like, you know what? Like, actually, our GNSS sales started going up because people needed to georeference and ground control and position those drones. So I think we underestimate sometimes just the complementary nature of our industry with all other industries, right? So I often hear stories that the surveying programs are shut down. I wish I had actually a metric of in how many programs are now geospatial being taught as a part of the curriculum, right? Just that we just don't have a discrete way of tracking. Maybe as I would guarantee that there's a lot of curriculums that actually are now incorporating some elements of geospatial. Maybe they're not calling it that way, right? But I think with the technology being easier to use, both from the field and the office side of things, I do feel like there's an influx of more people in our industry that with the non-traditional survey backgrounds and education. But at the end of the day, reel us back to the beginning of the story. You both and I locked into this industry, right? Yeah. And a lot of these people, we should give them the same opportunities. But I do love what you said earlier in one of the panels, right? Is like the armed forces analogy, right? Like we don't touch the emotional side, and once you're in it, you realize how amazing it is. But how do you actually get that across to somebody who's not in it, right? Like my friends and family still think, I don't know if you remember the TV show Friends, right? There's like, there was this character called Chandler Bing.
Yeah.
Nobody could describe what Chandler does, right? I feel like we are the Chandlers of our friends and family communities, right? It's hard to describe. How do we actually get that emotional message across, and what we do and what we feel about this?
People always nod. You always say, do you know what you do? What do you do, a land surveyor?
Yeah.
But, you know, I was growing up and I used to say, I'm a land surveyor to my friends, and then they'd say, well, I just go and take photos of fields.
Yeah.
And that's all I did. They didn't really understand, you know, what we were doing. But
I remember signing up for the university in Zagreb, signing up for a land surveying program, coming back home to Split, and one of the grannies from the village asked me, what are you going to study? And I was like, land surveying. And she took a pity and looked at me like with sad eyes. Well, at least you're still going to school. That's good, right? But I mean, not to play our little violin. I think that the industry is, or we are in a really phenomenal point. I do see a lot of energy and a lot of young talent and a lot of people, even today, people that have not heard of Trimble, people that have not been in industry for a long time. I see that a lot, right? And the question is now, how do we marry that with the professional surveyor, that Swiss Army knife, and how do we get some of these people that are kind of in the later stages of their career, meet or match their needs and their mentorship, right? And incur their knowledge and some of the younger people coming in.
Do you find that difficult on your side as well, to actually get across how big and what Trimble does as a company? Because that's one of the things I felt when I went to, I was lucky enough to go to Vegas and obviously go to Dimensions. I didn't realize actually what Trimble did. You know, I understand slightly what you did, but I didn't realize how far across the globe you touch on every single project. I remember the video on Singapore and SketchUp and things like that. And I'm like, this is way, way bigger. But do you find that hard for you as you go across to be, you know, we had just spoken then about us getting our point across in the industry. This is how big, this is how connected we are. But, you know, if I didn't go there, I wouldn't know how connected Trimble truly is through.
No, I think it's actually surprising to us in Trimble as well, right? Seeing our equipment being used in all parts of the globe in all sorts of different ways, and it's very inspiring. I think also what that tells us, coming back to kind of this you have this perspective. If you haven't grown up in surveying, you can definitely unlock a certain level of thought, or kind of like, oh, now I understand the problem statement a little clearer, a little bit better. And allows you to adopt the solution, and allows you to actually provide the right tool set for the job. I mean, it just blows my mind that Trimble Connect has 45 million people touching Connect on some shape or form. I mean, Trimble Geospatial touches a fraction of that, right? Just tells me how many people could benefit or could have a link into the geospatial capabilities, right? I think speaks towards the enormous potential this industry has, and the type of roles. Coming back to the hiring, I mean, I'm actually not in my organization. I'm much more keen in hiring people with specific domain industries. I can teach them the total station. I can teach them laser scanning, but it's hard to teach somebody 20 years of rail industry, right? What does a rail engineer need? What does a geotechnical engineer need on a mine site versus what a person needs in environmental capacity, right? That's a harder thing to learn than necessarily how to perform a specific field task, right? And that is a kind of the challenge of how do you do both, right? And some of our more seasonal professionals in the company, right? We're trying to be very intentional about how do we pair them with some of the younger, this rotational program and these intern people. And very often, right, like you have a kind of like somebody who's been super successful doing 30 years what they've been doing, right? And they can tell you everything ad nauseum about network adjustment and 7-parameter transformations, right? And then you have somebody who's looking at things practically and 3D laser scanning as a means to something else. And it's like, I don't care about that, right? Like, and then similarly, the person that knows 7-parameter transformations, like, I don't care about this big data management and APIs, right? So I think we are finding ourselves in this interesting moment in time where I would say a lot of this, the profession, I think, relies on the people maybe that are in that kind of 30 to 50 years range that maybe have the luxury of seeing both ends of the spectrum, right? And I think we our generations are the ones that have to take a bigger responsibility to cross that chasm, right, between the generational knowledge and the gaps. Like you said, the industry definitely looked different 15 years ago, and it's great to kind of have the appreciation and look fondly on those times, but times have changed, right? And you have to embrace it.
Go back to yourself, actually. I would like to just ask you a question a bit more personal onto yourself, because we've spoken a lot about Trimble and the ecosystem and everything you've been developing, but obviously you've got such a prominent role within the industry and with Trimble and things like that. What's your aspirations as personally moving forward? Obviously, I can ask a lot about what Trimble's vision is in the future, but as Boris, what's your aspirations now? Because you've come from working with your brother all the way through.
Yeah, and it's a great question. Of course, I mean, all of us reflect like what drives us and what motivates us, right? So, one of the most rewarding things about working for Trimble, right, is that we sometimes lose the appreciation of the impact we have on the industry, and one of the most rewarding moments are kind of the situations like this week when people walk up and say like, hey, that small checkbox you made in the software made my life much better, right? And I would say myself and a lot of Trimble colleagues live for that, right? In the position being the leader of the Trimble Geospatial group, it's also a lot of it's a privilege. I mean, growing up in the industry, it's like when you're a footballer and somebody lets you be coach of Arsenal for a day, or in charge of Arsenal transfers, right? It's such a phenomenal role, and you kind of ask yourself like, where do you go from there? And I can honestly say, as long as I'm in a position to be able to positively help and impact industry in a positive way, I'm gonna feel very, very fortunate. I would say people always ask like, oh, do you have ambitions on a corporate ladder, right? Like, where do you go from there? And honestly, I don't know. Like, actually, even this position, I used to lead the product marketing or product management organization before becoming the general manager of Geospatial. And I'd say at that time, I thought that was a dream job, right? Like you get to be responsible for all the roadmaps. And then I rewind the clock. Actually, being a product manager for TBC was actually when I was the happiest. Because you get to drill into something very specific, and you have to, you get to see tangible impact on a very concrete or discrete piece of the portfolio. So, I'd say one of the challenges, right, is on a higher level of the company, right, is some of the work you're doing now. You really see the results 5-10 years from now, right? So and I'd say personally, I'm in it for the long run, right? Like I still have a lot of passion and power. I feel like in the tank. So I'm trying to make decisions and trying to help Trimble make decisions when it comes to geospatial activities with a long term in view. So as long as Trimble is happy with me doing what I'm doing, I would sign myself up for a long year contract at this point, right? But it's like in sports. When you get to this point, right, it's like there's many things. Competition can shift, right? Technology can shift, and it's like it's the easiest to change the coach, right? So I also appreciate that my role is very much like that, right? Like you
keeps you on your toes. That's what we spoke about earlier.
Absolutely, right? And I would say every morning when I drive to work, I still have that pit in my stomach thinking about how do I make an impact and how do I make this day the most productive day that I can. Like back to your point, and as long as I keep having that feeling, I'll be loving to stay doing this job, right? Because when you become a very senior leader or in the CEO position, right? Like it's you become it, right? You're like the queen, right? Like I still get to be Boris, and I still get to kind of project my personal thoughts and emotions and in the geospatial context, which is just phenomenal thing. And Trimble is just a great company with a great culture in terms of trust, transparency, and empowerment of I have a lot of latitude and freedom to make good things, but I also have a lot of opportunity to mess things up. So again, like to your point, I keep myself on my toes, but I always think about like, okay, everything goes to. Sorry for using the.
No.
I don't mind going back to the field. Like I'd love to be a server in Split, Croatia, and it's nice to have a feeling comfortable at what you do and what you can provide as a professional, right? So it's important for me to keep myself technical. I still open Trimble Business Center. I still kind of open Trimble Access and walk up to the engineers and say, like, I'm sure they hate it, but like, why did you do this? This looks stupid, right? Like, or is there a different way to do this, right? So it's just a reminder for me not to become a number cruncher and kind of look at things from the PowerPoint perspective and say like, this looks great, right? Because it's the reality can be very different once you actually practically open things and do stuff yourself. So keep reminding myself, right, of not forgetting my roots and who I am. So
that goes perfectly into my next question. When you were stood behind the original Total Station, or working with your brother back in the day, what would be the bit of advice that you'd give yourself looking forward, not knowing that you were obviously going to be in such a role you are now?
I would say probably be open to ideas and where the life may lead you, right? It's funny how later in life you can actually connect a red thread, or how do you call it? Like kind of like, why did I become a person that I did? I'd say when we create a certain image of ourselves, right? Like we like to preserve the brand and kind of keep it very rigid, because and we should. I'd say at that time I would give myself the advice to stay open to ideas and keep learning. And I would say I was very fortunate to be alongside of people that actually pushed me to be better version of myself. I'd say be a little bit more intentional about the mentors and more outgoing from that perspective of seeking help and looking for advice, right? As a young person, like you think you know everything, right? And you're very proud and set in your ways. I'd say maybe that would be one of the things that I would give myself, younger self, kind of more kind of broaden horizons earlier on in life. I'd say living both in Croatia and living in the US, I definitely appreciate the cultural aspect of kind of our surroundings and what it makes us as people. I would say Croatia taught me something amazing is that we had a saying in Croatia, it's better that a village dies than the custom, right? Because we were so committed to the custom. The US was a complete other extreme of that. It's like ultimate pragmatism, right? Like, why are you wearing fancy, uncomfortable shoes when you could be walking in a tennis shoe, right? So I'd say people that can embrace and not lose being embraced, but not lose your identity, right? That's kind of the message. And I'd say that's something that maybe I've always had it in me, but I was maybe definitely not actively pursuing that train of thought as my younger self.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. But I don't know if I told you, I did play soccer, football growing up, and I would say that was any sort of activity like that. It's phenomenal character building. Teaches you about the successes and failures and how to deal with the ambiguity, right? And I think as young people, it's sometimes I look at the people that are 20 years old and they're so much comfortable changing jobs than we were growing up. Like you were so committed to a cause, and I'd say sometimes I look up to the younger people as an inspiration. So it doesn't have to always.
I think team sports is so much like I go into my team now and I speak to them. It's all about your method, how you go out, all your different tools, which is just your formations, your set pieces. That's just your methods. That's all it is, and it's getting your team effort together and doing that. Luckily, I've been able to do both, and there's definitely similarities between the two.
There's sports analogies, right? Like as a surveying company, right? There's a survey engineers. what is your IP? Like your intellectual property is the processes you implement. Basically, it's the tactics you play. And that's your strategy. That's how you win on a leaderboard, and that's how you win the next project against another survey company, right? It is sports is such a phenomenal analogy, right? To keep winning, but also to understand that losing from time to time is a part of the game, right?
Yeah.
So
just makes you want to win more.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Boris, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Always.
Thank you so much. We'll definitely do it again sometime.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. So really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience, and thank you for the impact you're having on the industry, James. It's just you're inspiration for many of us, and we need more people that can actually transmit and send a message about what we are about as a professionals. And your podcast and your influence is one of the, and you're actually a doer, right? I love seeing pictures of you serving in the field. So it's just such an honor to be a friend and get to know you. And thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Boris.
Yeah.